Welcome everyone. I'm Brittany Tibbin, SharePoint Account Director here at Spindustry. Today's webinar is Team Up with Microsoft Teams. We've been using this product internally for over a year now, and we're really excited to show you all that it can do today. Today's speakers are Patty Simmons, she's SharePoint Project Manager. Pamela Smith is SharePoint Instructor. Patty and Pam will give you a great end user side of Microsoft Teams. We have Zach Eisenhower, SharePoint Engineer. He will give you all the technical side. And we have Jared Edge, the Director of SharePoint Services. We have a lot to go through today, so if you have any questions, please enter them into the webinar's question feature, and we'll do our best to answer these at the end of the webinar. We'll end the webinar at 12:30, but we'll of course stay around to answer any further questions. And without further ado, I'll let Jared get started on our agenda.
So today's agenda, we're gonna go through an overview of Microsoft Teams. We'll discuss how teams are created inside the environment. We'll discuss what gets created when you create a team. We think that's important for our admins to know. We're going to examine channels, chat features, how you store files, where they get stored, integration with the other pieces of Office 365. Then we're going to discuss meetings very briefly, and then we'll discuss governance at the end.
Great. To get started, can I have Pam and Zach, can you just give us a one sentence summary of just what Microsoft Teams is?
Well, it's a hub for working together as a team.
Yeah, and it really is a collaboration platform with deep integration into Office 365 and many other applications as well.
Yep, thank you. And let's talk a little bit about why do we need Teams? I'll start out with this, and like I said, we've been using Teams for a while. There's so many tools that you can use with Office 365, and Teams is my personal favorite because it gives you a place to put all those tools together. Brings in Outlook, SharePoint pages, outside websites, really almost anything all in one spot.
It also allows for a secure place to edit files with others, so great collaboration tool, like Zach had said. And then also, if you're chatting with somebody and you decide that this would be better as a phone call, then you can actually just convert your chat to a video call or a voice call, and or just simply share your screen with others.
Great. And before we move on, I wanted to share an email that we got from a client. This is an interesting inquiry, and we get these all the time, and it really just sums up what Teams is. I thought we could start with this. We'll read through it. She asked, or she was emailing us for a system we could build for her, but listen to what she said. She said, "We would like this to replace our current instant messaging as well as email and tasking between staff internally. There may be a time when we would want information to be placed into a SharePoint list, however we can make that happen. We would like a system that alerts the user that they have a message or the total number of messages they have on the computer screen that doesn't go away until the message is acknowledged. We would like there to be a capability for back and forth messaging, but for the message to be completed when the conversation was done. If there was a need to forward a conversation to another person, that would be helpful. If there was a way to have favorite or frequent contacts or teams, that would be great as well. Archiving these messages would be good if possible," and she mentioned that might be a pie in the sky thing. "It would be necessary for these messages to be time and date stamped, and if the participant's signature were automatically on the message, that would be helpful." And like I said, we get these emails all the time, and it's fantastic when I get them because it's simple. Email back and say, "You guys already have this, Microsoft Teams." And as we go through today, you'll really see how Teams provides a solution for them. All right, moving on. Zach, can you start us out by briefly walking us through how people can get Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, so starting on the technical side of things, Microsoft Teams is actually included with any enterprise Office 365 subscription. So from an IT perspective, it's really easy to get that licensing available right off the bat. But from an end user perspective, there's a couple different ways you can get Microsoft Teams, and it's really, really slick. So the first way you can get it is by utilizing the web application, which is right inside the browser, and it actually acts and looks just like the desktop application, and it's super slick. But you can also get the desktop application, which works on Windows or Mac. And you'll actually see that several of us are on Windows today, and I personally am actually on a Mac today. So you'll see that that interface is really consistent across the board. There's also mobile applications you can get as well that will allow you to utilize Teams both in meetings and in chats on the fly.
Awesome.
I know we'll demo these here in a few minutes, but can you explain what is a team and how teams are created?
Sure. So a team is going to be a glorified group of in Office 365 that contains a lot of additional features that you're not going to see in a regular group. And it's really going to be your collaboration space for whatever this group is or whoever's in that team. Creating a team is super simple. Within Teams, there's a button right down here at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You click it, and you can go ahead and create a team by clicking the Create Team button. Inside of here, there's a couple different ways you can go about creating your team. You can build a team from scratch. That's where it gives you a very easy walkthrough wizard of how you want to set up your team. There's a couple different security questions that it asks. For instance, you can set it to be private, so you have to actually invite people into the team. But you can also set it to public, so anyone can join it if they can see it. And then even org-wide, which actually will automatically join everyone in the organization to that team, and no one has to manually join into it. Most of your teams are probably going to be private teams, but as you can see as I'm walking through this wizard, it's super simple. You give the team a name, you give it a description, and then you start inviting people to that team. The other way you can create a team, though, is you can create it from an existing team or Office 365 group. And that means that if you're using this feature, you can base a new team off of what an already existing team looks like, or you can actually connect an existing Office 365 group to a new team so that there's a lot of really close integration there. There is several different things that are created when you create a team, and I briefly want to go over that real quick. So when you create a new team or connect it to an Office 365 group, what's actually happening is behind the scenes you're getting that Office 365 group is either created or is connected to the team, and then on top of that you're also getting a SharePoint team site for that team behind the scenes, and that's where a lot of the features of Teams actually pull their information from or put certain pieces of content in as well. There are some additional things that can be created as well in association with the team, but aren't necessarily created automatically. So, and as we go through these demos, you'll see some of those features that can be added into a team over time here.
Okay, now for the best part, we're going to see some live demos from the team. I will start us out by going through just a very quick overview of what you'll see in Teams. We'll go through just the left tabs and across the bottom. So when you first bring it up, it comes up with, sorry, there we go. When you first bring it up, it'll come up with the chat feature. At the very top here, I want to point this out before I go down. This is your activity. This will be any notifications, and we'll walk through what those might look like here in a little bit. Next one down to the chat features. You can see at the top here, I've been chatting with Jared. This would be a conversation just between the two of us. You can also have group chats. And going across the bottom, you can see you can type here at the bottom. You can change any formatting you want. You can attach documents right in your chat, and those are saved up here in the files. I'll show you that in a minute. Some fun features are they have emojis, they have GIFs, and we'll show you in a bit. You can turn these on or off if you want your organization to have them, but we think they're kind of fun. They also have stickers. You can schedule a meeting between you that'll show up right on their Outlook calendar. And you can also integrate a bunch of different SharePoint apps, and we'll look at those in just a moment. Next tab down, you'll go through your teams. This is where you're working with a team of people or a project or a section of your organization. You see chats are coming in now from Jared here. back to the team. So like we'll talk about what these mean here in a moment. You can chat within Teams or reply to conversations in Teams. Meetings is a really helpful spot for me personally because it brings in your Outlook calendar. So you can go through all your scheduled events for the day and schedule additional ones, automatically sending those to people or teams. Calls is the next tab. Speed dial allows you to call people over Teams. This is really helpful because we have people that work from home or they work remotely. And this is really nice to be able to use this feature. I call on here because a lot of times I need to jump and be sharing my screen. So we already have that capacity right in Teams. Another really neat feature is the voicemail part of this. This is a newer feature for Teams. What you can do is if you call somebody and they don't pick up, just like a regular phone, you can actually leave a voicemail and it'll transcribe them just like it does on a cell phone, and they can get that message in here. Next tab down is an easy way to see all your files that have been shared in Teams. And then the ellipsis here will get you to all the other apps that you can integrate. And some are Microsoft apps, some aren't, but I'll just briefly go down here. There's a lot for developers, for project managers, your OneNote. I mean, really anything would be in here. As mentioned before, you can get the app for your cell phone. It is extremely easy to use. As I'm running around the office, I use this all day long to message people. And that's just a general overview. I'll let Pam go ahead and get started with her overview of HR.
Thank you, Brittany. So in my scenario, we have an HR department that needs a place for employees to see benefits, PTO information, and work schedules. And HR also needs to share files and information. And Teams is great for this. Notice that I have an HR team already set up. So think of a team as a collection of people and permissions that are given to everyone in the team. Our HR team includes all employees. We can provide information for the team and start conversations. We are going to look at channels within a team. A channel is a way of organizing within your team. So think of your team as the permissions. The channel is the organization or the folders. For our HR team, we have a general channel. Always when you create a new team, a general channel gets created to begin with. We have our PTO channel. And then I have a hidden channel just to save space. And if I click this little arrow, you can see that our hidden channel is benefits. If I decide I'm working in this channel, I want to show, I can click on show. And it's no longer hidden. It's going to show up on its own line. Everything done within a channel is available to the entire team. You can share files and easily collaborate with others in the team. So the channel keeps you organized as you go through the channel for the topic you want to discuss. So as you're working, your channel is that organization that helps you see conversations you've had, attaching files, working with others, and having a place to look back on what we've talked about. I'm going to create a channel for you. With my HR team, I'm going to go over to the ellipsis and add a channel. So we need a channel for our out of office schedule. It's nice that there's a place where you can put in a description of what this channel is for. And at the bottom, I can automatically show this channel in everyone's channel list. If I don't check that, it'll come up as a hidden channel, which people can then unhide as they wish. I'm going to automatically show, click on add. So the out of office schedule is available for everyone that's in the HR team. In here, I am going to start a conversation. And in this conversation, please fill out your out of office time. And this is similar to what we saw in the chat that Brittany just showed you, but we are actually in the team in a channel. So here I have the same choices at the bottom, but everyone in this team will see this information. I'm going to click on attach, and I'm going to attach a file that I've saved in OneDrive called work schedule. Uploading a copy of this. You can see this file is showing up in our conversation, and I'm going to click to send it. And this is now available for everyone that is in the team. What I can do with this file, we're going to use quite a bit. So as more conversations appear in this channel, that information is going to go away, or it's not going to be as easy to see. So I can go up at the top. There are different tabs. Inside my out of office schedule, there's a conversations tab, a files tab. You can see the conversation we've been working with. Here's the files tab. And here is our work schedule. So we can go in here, open that file. We can actually collaborate in that file. So I'm opening that file now. It opens up in Excel Online. And then I can say I want to edit this in Teams. I can edit it in Excel or in Excel Online. I'm going to go ahead and close that because I want to show you one more thing you can do with the file. So if this is a file that we are in all the time, we have add a tab to the right of conversations in your files, and I can add my Excel file. Here's the work schedule. I'm going to click on save. So now anytime we need to go in and add information into the work schedule, we can go to the Excel tab instead of looking for it in files or trying to go back to the conversations and actually find that file. So we've seen how the HR department will use the HR team and the various channels.
Thank you, Pam. Being able to edit that document right in Teams is so helpful. Now we'll hear from Patty. She will be showing us a marketing example and working with clients.
Hello, I'm going to show you the marketing team and how I would use the channel here for the marketing team. A little different than the way Pam is using it, and like I say, channels can be used for a lot of different things. For my marketing team, we deal with a lot of clients. So what I want to do is use the channels for my clients. And that way, when there's communication that we're within our team that pertains to a specific client, then we can go and have those conversations within those channels. And it just makes it easier to find information about that client, what we talked about, if you just go right to the channels and look in through your conversations. So there's a general channel like Pam has shown. And you can go in and just have general discussions with your team members. But if you want to discuss specifically about a client, you can go into their channel. So I have two channels created, the ABC Printing and Simmons Bakery. So for ABC Printing, for this one, this client had asked us to create a masquerade ball invitation. So we're going to be working with that channel for it. So you have discussions within the channels here. And as you can see with some of the conversations that we're having, if there's a meeting that's been created, you'll see that meeting option in there. You'll see conversations where somebody create a conversation, you reply back to that person, so you can have a thread of conversation there. If someone added something, like Pam added an Excel document to her team, it would show you that something was added. So a little while ago, I added a Word document there, so you can see that the Word document was added to the top of my screen. So you have your files that will have all your for all the documents for that team. And one of the things too is these files are specifically for this particular client that we're working with. The files link over on the left side shows you all files across all of your teams. So that's a big difference between those two files. So this would be just strictly within our team. And so I have across the top here a contact list, which was like an Excel list, very similar to what Pam did. But on any one of these, you can actually right-click on them and actually rename it. So you can change it from Word to Excel to the actual name of the document, and you can also remove them. So any of the tabs across the top, if I'm not going to use the wiki, I can right-click on it and I can remove it from the list. So these are just some of the things I have for my ABC teams. There's the Word document here is an example of the invitation that we've created. So I can place this out here for everybody to see. And again, we can collaborate and edit this document together. And I'll show up here in just a second. There we go. All right, so that's just something we did for ABC printing. Simmons Bakery is another example that I have. I also wanted to mention to you too, you might see that on the left side, some of the text is bold and some is not. Any of the channels that have bold text means there's new activity in there. And so just a clue for you to go there and see what's being talked about. So on our Simmons Bakery, I have some, again, conversations. We've got files. In here, instead of just a Word document or an Excel file to add across the top of my screen, I can actually add a SharePoint site to it. And so I have a sample site here that I'll go to, and I'll show you that it brings up SharePoint with it. So it works really well with SharePoint. And so I'll have to sign in apparently here. Sorry.
As she's getting logged in here, I'll just say this is my favorite part about Teams. For all of our projects we have down the side, we put the project site right in here, our SharePoint site. So it's super helpful. I live in Teams all day. So as I'm working on a project, I can go to that tab and I can pull up anything from my SharePoint page, the documents, I can add documents, edit documents, add in notes or conversations. So it's so helpful to have the SharePoint page right in your Teams. I don't have to go open up a browser or anything, so it's quick and easy.
Yep, and I'll just add that this is very, very common for us. We get all types of requests from clients, and these scenarios that you're seeing are actual true scenarios that we've pulled out of some of the things that we've done for other clients before. So I'll turn it back over to Patty.
Sorry about that. All right, so there's the site that sometimes you'll have to be required to log into it to see it. But this is something maybe we're working on creating designing their homepage for them. So here's just a sample of the site that we have for them. You can also add a library, one of the SharePoint libraries to it too. And if you can add any library to the top, I have an image library here, and it'll just give you all of the documents that are in that SharePoint library. And from here, I can work with these documents. I can upload. I can even open the library in SharePoint if I wanted to. But what I do want to show you here is to add those websites to it. It's very simple. Again, you just go to the plus here to add a tab. And there are lots of different choices for you to use. So there are the Excel documents. We talked about the OneNotes, the planners. So as you can see, as we go through this, you've got SharePoint, website. There's lots of different tabs that you can work with of different apps. And a lot of times, if the app that you're looking for is not here, you might check back in a week and it's probably going to be there. So they're constantly adding to this list. So again, if you don't see what you have, check back and you may end up being able to use it there. So I'm going to just use the website one. So you can actually have a tab for any website that you want. So I'll do just a generic search website here. I'll just go to Google. And then this will bring up the web page here for Google. And you'll see how easy it is to just add a website to your team. Right, so it's just really nice stuff here. So the other part I'd like to talk to you about is in the conversations portion of it, is that sometimes when you're collaborating or sending emails to individuals, or you're CCing your client on something, you may want to CC the channel or send an email directly to the channel, and then you can store that information in your channel along with the attachments that might be included with that. I have an email that I've created that I'm going to go ahead and send over to this channel right now, and then we'll see it pop up here towards the bottom of my screen. And it'll pop up. And like I said, if there's attachments included with it, those are also going to be included in your Files tab. So there is the email that I just sent, and it has an attachment. And so again, if you are having a lot of conversations here, you may lose sight of this. But if it's here, you can view the original email if you'd like. And if you don't see it, easily in your conversations, you can go into Files. When an email is sent to your channel, a folder is automatically created called email messages, and you'll be able to find your emails, and any of the attachments that were in the emails will also be displayed here as well. So great way of working with your team members, using your channels to separate all your information, and collaborating with your team members on those individual clients, emailing them, working with your websites.
So awesome. Patty, can you show us how did you get that email address? How do they know where to send it to?
Oh, sure. Across the top of the screen, next to the name of the channel, in the 3 dots beside it, you'll see Get Email Address, and then you just simply click on that. It'll bring it up. You can copy it. Every channel has a different email address, and your team also has a different email address. So you can send email directly to the general channel for your team, or any of your client channels.
Awesome. And I just wanted to throw one extra thing in there for developers. So if we have any developers in the audience, if you are developing with the SharePoint framework and SPFX, you can now, in the latest version, of SPFX, you can actually create your web parts so that they can be tabs inside of Microsoft Teams. And that is, to do that, you don't have to learn any new technology or learn any new code for that. It's just a setting in a config file. You tell it you want it to be available inside of Teams, and Microsoft has done all the behind the scenes work for you to make that work out. And you get the same experience with property channels and things like that as well. So really, really rich. Microsoft is really dedicating a lot of time to Teams. It's their primary baby product there, and so they're putting everything they can into it for the development world as well.
All right, thank you, Patty.
One other thing
at the beginning, it's truly a hub for everything you do all day, and it's so helpful for that. Now we'll hear from Zach. He's going to give us from an IT case and talk about scheduling meetings and, most importantly, security.
Yes, thanks. So, from an IT perspective, Teams can actually be incredibly powerful. In IT, you have a lot of communication back and forth within your own team, and then there's obviously communication outwardly towards your, the different teams and departments that are out in your organization. And I'm going to build off of some of what Pam and Patty have shown here, and kind of put them in the perspective of an IT team and how they could potentially use it. So obviously you have your general channel, which you can communicate for general chatter between the team members, but there's some additional functionality that we can get out of Teams that makes it really, really powerful. And I'm actually going to show you this documentation tab that I have right up here. And this is actually using that wiki that you saw at the top of all of the other channels that were out and about in Pam's and Patty's examples. This has been renamed to documentation, and the wiki actually acts very much like OneNote. And so if you've ever used OneNote, you know that you can open up a side menu and you can actually navigate all of the header sections like an index, and it's very easy to get to or jump to certain bits of information. So from an IT perspective, putting your documentation inside of a wiki or contact information like I have here is really, really useful to have on hand for anyone who's part of the team. Additionally, you can attach your ticket system. There's a lot of IT teams out there that have ticket systems. If you're using SharePoint as a ticket system, you can attach the SharePoint list that's holding all of those tickets, and you can actually interact with all of those items inside of this single pane of glass. And that's really the big point of Teams. It's a single pane of glass that brings all of your collaboration features together. So you can access it all from one location. And as you can see, I have a ticket up here. I could edit it if I wanted to. I could create a new one if I wanted to as well. So there's a lot of great features there. But we can actually extend the features of Teams even further. You'll notice here that in my channel list, there's a couple of channels that are bolded indicating new activity. And one of them is issues and problems. So if you look at the issues and problems, you'll notice that there's an email that has been sent directly to the channel that one of our sites is down. Now, because it's in Teams, I can go ahead and let the entirety of my team know that I'm on this, and they now know I'm looking at this. If they have something they want to add, they can certainly go ahead and add that to the bottom here, or come talk to me directly. But thanks to this email, I now am alerted to the fact that maybe there's something going on, and I can actually go to my alerts channel, which has a webhook in it that allows for our monitoring application to send rich text alerts to this channel with additional information. So we have someone that emailed in, said that spin23.com is down. I can see from our heartbeat that, yep, there is a site down. I now have a baseline to go off of where to start diagnosing what the problem is. And you'll notice here right off the bat, we actually have Brittany's already responded to it and said, hey, when is this going to be back online? Now, a lot of these functionalities are meant specifically within IT, at least in this example, right? So people who aren't a part of IT maybe shouldn't be able to do that. I like Brittany, and I think Brittany's input is important, but perhaps I need to, prune the team down so it's just my IT team. And that's actually where this next really powerful piece of Teams comes in. You can manage the team, and you can actually manage who's in the team and who has control within the team. So there's two different roles, if you will, within team security. There's owners, which have ultimate control of the team. They can do pretty much anything. And the members, who are very much just contributing information. There is a guest one as well, which deals with external users, and that's really powerful for getting external clients, for instance, into a team, and really allowing them to communicate with all of your internal members as well. But in this case, we just have all members within our organization, and I'm going to go ahead and just remove Brittany from this team, and now immediately she no longer has access to our IT team, and we can use it internally within our own group. You'll notice though at the top of this management screen, there's a lot more features though. So if this was if I had a join code that I set out for everyone in the company, for instance, which is something you can generate to allow people to send a request to join the team, you'll see any of those requests actually within this screen here, and you can approve or deny them at will. You can also manage your channels right from here. Now, Pam showed creating a channel within the team from the ellipses right in the team side panel here. And you can, of course, remove channels that same way as long as you're an owner of that team. But you can also do it all right from this panel, and you can actually do a couple more things that you don't actually see in that team side panel. You can see here that you can go ahead and toggle whether or not it shows for members as well as yourself. And you can also set up connectors and get the email addresses from those from that channel as well, right from inside of here. And if you have a lot of channels, they provide this really handy search feature, so you can search through all your channels and find the one you're trying to manage. You'll notice too down here that there's a deleted section. And this is actually going to keep track of all of the channels that were deleted by the owner, so that if something happens where you need to bring that channel back, or it was accidentally deleted, you can go ahead and right inside of Teams restore it, and you don't have to go through any additional outside admin tools. Pretty slick. There's also the settings tab. Right in here, you can manage a whole host of features within the team. Everything from what permissions a member truly has to the picture of the team. If you're not okay with just the initials, you could put a picture of some form inside of there. You could set up guest permissions so that if external users jump in, they have certain levels of permissions that go beyond just chatting. You can set up mentions, which are a really great way to call out someone within a team, and I'll show you that in just a second actually. Right here you can get your team code, like I mentioned before. If you want people to be able to send requests to join the team, you can get that team code from right here. And there's this fun stuff category, and this is what Brittany was mentioning before, where you can actually manage if GIFs are allowed, or emojis are allowed, or stickers are allowed, and that kind of stuff. So depending on the team, you may want to disable that kind of functionality and make it a little more professional, if you will. But depending on the team, maybe you want those things in there to, create a relaxed and conducive environment for communication. There's also an apps tab, and this is where you can see all the apps that are associated with the team in any of the channels, and then add additional apps if you'd like to. And you can, of course, remove apps as well. I actually want to show you a little bit of what you can do with the mentions portion here. So let's say that in this alert here, I actually wanted to make sure that I get Jared involved in this. So Teams allows you to call out people using mentions, and it's a really, really clever way to get someone's attention. So you just put an @ sign and you start typing the person's name you want to mention. You can hit tab and it'll auto-complete their name. You can actually remove their last name if you'd like it to be a little more informal on the message. And as soon as you send that, it's actually going to pop up with a little @ sign like you see right here on the Teams section, and that lets you know that someone's mentioned you in a team somewhere. And actually, I bet if I click on issues and problems right down here, you can actually see that it showed a 1 next to me, and now you can see that this message Pam sent me that is mentioning me and mentioning that she needs a new mouse. Perhaps it's time to remove Pam from this team as well, but we can tackle that at a later date and time. Now, there's some additional functionality that you get within a team, and that's really the ability to meet within a team. And meetings are incredibly powerful and allow you to get everyone in the team on one screen and actually communicate within the confines and the context of your team and your channel. So meetings can be associated with a specific channel, and the easiest way to start a meeting within a channel is to just select the channel you want to be in, go down here to our meeting function, and you click on that, and you can give the meeting a name. You can see me in the background there. And if you said meet now, you can go ahead and start that meeting right away and everyone can jump in, or you can actually hit schedule a meeting and it will pop up with the new meeting dialog that is consistent through all of Teams, whether you're clicking schedule meeting in the meetings tab or if you're creating a meeting right inside of here. You can set a title, location. You're very familiar with this from Outlook. It looks and feels very similar. You'll notice that there is a scheduling assistant as well, very similar to Outlook. It lets you identify who's available, so you invite people to this meeting. You can use the scheduling assistant to see when availability is for them. You'll notice at the top here that there's select a channel to meet in. And since I created this meeting within the channel, it's automatically filled that in for me. But when you create a new meeting from the meetings tab, for instance, you can go inside of here and actually select a team and a channel that you want it to be associated with. You don't have to associate it with a channel or a team, but the functionality is there. And the power of this is that when you associate it with a channel, and the team, anyone who's in that channel then, when that meeting starts, can join that meeting. They don't have to be directly invited to that meeting. So there's a lot of really nice functionality there. Obviously, you can add some details to the meeting as well and set up a time for that as well. And you just hit schedule. And when you hit schedule, just discard that, it'll actually pop up right inside of here in your meetings tab. You can see there's a bunch of different meetings here. And by selecting them, you can accept or deny them, as well as view the information that's associated with them. So that's kind of an idea of how IT might use it. And actually, a lot of people will use Teams when it comes to the meetings and it comes to some of those additional pieces of functionality that you can use to enrich your Teams experience.
Thank you, Zach. That was all really helpful information. Jared, did you have anything you wanted to add before going on?
So yeah, I just want to add a couple of things. So those are great examples, but there are some limitations with Teams. If I wanted to say have some documents that show up in each of the channels, it's kind of important to understand what happens in the background when you're creating these channels, when you're adding documents inside of there. And so, for example, down in the HR department where she has these multiple channels, if she's adding a document to the out of office schedule, well, certainly that file is getting stored inside of SharePoint because SharePoint is the backing for all of this. But it's in a folder inside of a library inside of SharePoint. And so it may be, you may not see it specifically if you're in a different channel. So if I can open this in SharePoint, we might be able to see just a little bit of what's going on there. 2 seconds for that to show up. And I'm just going to take that URL. I'll log in, that's okay. Jared. And so as you're looking at Teams, out of the box is not necessarily everything. So we have some tips and tricks for you on how do I get around a few of these things. And as I log in here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So remember that it is SharePoint, okay? Just remember that it's SharePoint under the hood. So all the things you learned about SharePoint before, you can still do inside of this specific site that gets created inside the background, in the background. So you'll see that the entire team that she had for Spin 23 HR has a site in the background. There's a library called Documents, just like any other team site that you generate, okay? And what you're gonna see here is, as soon as it gets back there, let's go, come on, there we go. All right, so what you're gonna see is she has a channel called Benefits, she has a channel called General, she has a channel called Out of Office Schedule, she just created that for you. She has one called PTO, one called Work Schedule, and one called blah, blah, blah. And so every time you create a channel, that folder gets created over here, and the documents you plug into that channel actually get separated into these folders, okay? But let me talk about that for a second, because you are missing a piece of the puzzle here. If you're thinking long-term storage of these documents here inside of your Teams environment, you're missing out on some things that need to be governed. You're missing out on content types, you're missing out on, and I'm not saying you can't come back and add those, I'm just saying I don't want it to be so obscured that you forget about best practice. So you're missing out on content types. You're missing out on possibly going in here and adding additional metadata to those documents to make sure that you can have a richer search experience. You're missing out on what if some of these things need retention plans. Hopefully you can get that out into the Office 365 compliance, security and compliance center. So keep thinking about all those pieces of the puzzle, and don't just think, okay, it's being stored, I'm going to leave it here forever and people will know where to go get it. That doesn't work when your team changes. That doesn't work when you're 5 years down the road and you have so many documents in your environment that you're trying to find something special, or something specific. So a case would be, how would I get one of those documents? So if we're inside of HR, how do I get the one document that I'm going to plug in there to show up in each one of these channels without reproducing the document? Or how do I get it to show up in multiple teams, which is even harder, without reproducing the document? Because I want one true source of information, I don't want multiple documents, right? And so how do I solve that problem? So let's say I need to get that document into my SLT team and into my Spin 23 IT team or my HR team. What if I want that to be across all of them? Our suggestion is that you would put that into a site. Okay, you're used to using SharePoint already, or you're used to using team sites already. Maybe the place that that document should live is not inside of a team, but inside of a SharePoint site that all three of these teams can see. And so then all you have to do is add that document library into here in any of the ways that we've already shown you, whether that's going here, just click on SharePoint or document library, which will allow you to surf to any library and then put it in here. They still have to have permissions to see it. Or whether you're just adding a site, a website where you just add the entire team site into your teams here. So either one of those scenarios is going to allow you to bridge the gap or go across teams, if you will. So those are just some things you have to think about. So you're not going to, remember, it is Teams, it is driven by SharePoint in the background, but you can also be creative, okay? And you can still make it a secure experience for your end users as well.
All right, thank you, Jared. Before we go on to our last topic, governance, I wanted to ask Zach one question. Can you tell us a little bit about how this relates to Skype for Business?
Sure, that is a really good question and one we get a lot. So for those of you who don't know, Skype for Business is Microsoft's previous instant messaging and meeting application that really allowed teams to communicate across the organization. Teams is the next evolution of that. It is the future direction of Microsoft and all of its communication and collaboration future moves. And it actually is really, really powerful for just those things, chat and meetings. But like we've showed you, it has a lot more to it. It has a lot more collaboration features, a lot more integrations. And it means that really Skype for Business has become deprecated, and Teams is the direction that you should look to heading as your organization evolves and grows within your Office 365 tenant. And so does that mean Skype for Business is going away? Eventually, yes, but it's not going away anytime soon. It's still going to be there. It's still going to exist, but Microsoft is urging people to move on to Teams. And it's worth mentioning that the Teams integrations are so much more rich that your team is really going to like Microsoft Teams a lot more than Skype for Business. We've seen this happen in several of our clients already that we've helped with migrations. They absolutely love it. As an additional note, I want to mention that, if you're new to Office 365 or haven't signed up yet and are thinking of signing up, any new subscriptions to Office 365 are going to be using Teams exclusively. Skype for Business will not be included in those. Again, it's Microsoft's future outlook, so they want to push people to Teams as much as they can. So if you haven't moved to Teams yet and you're using Skype for Business, know that that's going to continue to exist, so you can move to Teams at your own pace, but also know that it is deprecated and it will go away eventually.
All right, thank you, Zach. Final topic, we wanted to talk to you guys about governance. This question out to anybody on the team here, but what are your thoughts around, does Microsoft Teams need to be governed?
Yes.
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 Absolutely.
Jared, do you want to talk to us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So again, a couple of things we pointed out just a few minutes ago. One, SharePoint's behind the scenes of this. And so you kind of need to try to, or figure out how you're going to apply all your SharePoint governance into the SharePoint piece that Teams is holding on to. So why is SharePoint even in the background? Why can't Teams do all this stuff in itself? It's simple. Microsoft has taken a stance, and this is something they said last week at the SharePoint conference. They have taken a stance that SharePoint is the place they're going to manage documents. So if any of their tools need to manage documents, they're going to do that in SharePoint. So Teams is for collaboration, but SharePoint is that piece that's going to hold those documents. Yammer is for communication, maybe even on a wider scale or externally, but SharePoint's going to be that place where they store documents from now on and moving forward with Yammer and so forth. So why recreate the wheel? You could think of it that way as well. So does Teams need to be governed? Absolutely, because it's not just Teams, it's actually SharePoint and Teams, not SharePoint versus Teams. not project versus teams, it's projects and teams. So the question you'd have to ask yourself is, and we've seen this both ways, do I open teams up so that anyone can go in there and start adding channels and doing everything that they want to do, and we'll compensate for it on the IT team and make sure that it's just going in a good direction? We've seen that before, and that is working for the client that I'm speaking about. But a lot of clients are more, I don't want to see sprawl in an unorganized manner. So we're going to control who actually creates the teams. We're going to control who can contribute to teams. We're going to do some of those things so that we don't just go to the admin center one day and see 30,000 teams sitting in there because someone saw a button and just clicked it. So yes, it needs to be governed. You need to pay attention to kind of what's going on inside that environment. Remember, with governance, you're looking for one true source of information. So if you are plugging information into Teams, putting a document there, and then also putting it over in a project site somewhere, and then also putting it over inside of a team site that you have over a department team site inside of SharePoint, you just have 3 sources of that document, not 1 source of that document. So how do I maintain one true source? A lot of you already have a SharePoint experience in place, and now you're trying to put Teams on top of that. And if you already have a logical design or a setup that includes like department sites and such, and now you're just trying to add that collaboration piece on top of it, you could connect that department site into a team, and then it become a team. Or again, if you want to address problems like spanning teams and being able to share a set of documents or a library across many teams, leave those documents where they really belong, the department site, and then attach those department sites in as tabs into your teams. And I think that solves a lot of problems. You're also looking for a one-stop shop. That's great. That's part of governance, right? And I think Teams actually supplies that in a different way than what we intended when we first started doing governance. And what that is, the one-stop shop here is a user needs to be able to go to one place to be able to accomplish many, many, many tasks. And I think Teams is that. It rolls all of that up for you, and it puts it all in one place. You saw the tabs. You saw Patty bring in a project site inside of there. You saw Pam add documents inside of there as different tabs. Giving that team member one location to go to so they can do all their things, whether they're on their desktop, whether they're in a hotel using somebody else's machine going through a browser, or whether they're on their cell phone or a tablet, any place, they're going to get that same experience or very similar experience and be able to have that one-stop shop experience as well. So that's pretty cool. But now we add on this for governance, hey, one tool, and that's kind of what Teams is doing as well. You saw it. It can bring in all those, even those third-party tools, put them all together. So you guys, your marketing team, Patty's marketing team, they constantly have to monitor Twitter. No problem. We have Microsoft Flow. He goes out there, looks at the Twitter channel. Anytime there's a tweet that mentions a certain hashtag about one of her clients, it brings that over into a list inside of SharePoint, and then they have that SharePoint list as a tab inside of Teams. You can make some magical things happen inside of this environment, and that's what we think you need to govern, take a look at, figure out how you're going to use it. Don't just listen to how Microsoft says it should be used. Figure out how you can use it in your organization first.
Yeah, and I mean, adding on to that as a part of governance as well, security for the teams themselves and the channels is really important, and we've shown a little bit about that, but more beyond that is also the protection of the data within those teams. And so what you don't see behind the scenes is that all of that data is actually automatically included in the Microsoft 365 Data Protection Suite, and because it's all sitting in SharePoint. So your SharePoint is protected, your Teams data is protected as well. And that Teams data also extends to the chats themselves within the team. So that stuff is all protected as well. And you can actually, roll back and get that information if something were to happen where it gets deleted or removed in some fashion. And there's some people have asked us, can someone just go in and delete a message? And the answer is by default, no. When someone in a team puts in a message, it's there forever. And it will obviously be backed up and part of the data protection layer as well. But there are options for admins to allow owners of a channel to go in and delete those messages if you want to. But it is worth mentioning too that just because it's deleted doesn't mean it's truly gone for good. There are ways to get that data back if needed.
So what you just said, Zach, just blew my mind because I wasn't thinking that. We definitely need to communicate some of that. So let's say that you decided, your organization decided within your governance that you could use Teams with external clients. So I'm sitting here inside of my senior leadership team, and I have maybe my set of directors, and my directors like to collaborate a lot, and they throw some important documents inside of here. Because you're part of the Azure rights management, and you can use labeling. If you guys haven't heard about that, we have sessions coming up on that. If they label the document as it's being placed in there, or if that library automatically labels that document as an internal document, even though they're doing external sharing here, that document should still be safe. It's going to stop them from someone else from being able to pick up that document that's external to them. Those are things you kind of want in your environment. You want the environment to help you along and help you be safe. So excellent point.
All right, just to wrap things up here, I'll take you back at the very beginning when I talked about that case we had from a client. Like I said, we get these emails all the time. Hopefully you can see now that as we went through and you learned about Teams answered all of their needs in here. And basically they emailed us, we said, you already have it. We spent a couple days, we went and helped them get it set up, and then we trained their team and they were up and using it. So it's a really great tool. I do have some questions I want to run through. We only have a couple minutes, so if we can quickly get these answered, that'd be great. First one I want to give to Jared. This was a question from Paul. He said, a common issue we have is we need to share a document or a group of documents in multiple channels or teams. Is that possible without creating duplicate files and folders?
And yeah, so I think we answered that already, just to kind of show you there. Maybe the evaluation there is are those teams really separate? Maybe they are, that's possible. But then how do I bridge that gap? And we think the answer to that is just put that into SharePoint team site and then plug those in as pages for all of them. As long as they have permissions to get to it, they should be just fine.
Okay, next one. I'll actually answer this one. So I said, Nancy asked, why would you have a hidden channel if everyone in the team has access to the channel? The word hidden is a little confusing in there. It just means it's hidden from the menu. That way you don't have a run-on of, like for me, I have 20 some teams and channels. It just makes it a little bit cleaner, ones that you don't use as often.
So here I have a channel just out of my view for right now. So I can just click on it and see the rest of the ones that were hidden, that's all.
You just kind of tailor your menu to what you use mostly. Next question is from Steve. Said, are files shared in a team channel stored in the underlying library associated with the SharePoint site?
Yeah, so they are stored in an underlying library, and they are associated with the SharePoint site. Jared showed that a little bit actually already, where each team does have its own team site in SharePoint that holds all of the files for all of the channels. They're separated out into the documents library by folders per channel, and it is all included in that SharePoint site. So that's where his governance speech kind of came in there. Since all that's automatically being created and set up for you, there needs to be some governance in place to manage that and make sure it's not forgotten, and make sure that everything is secured like it's supposed to.
Yep, great question.
Great. We do have 5 more questions, so stick around, but quickly, can you go? I promised everyone I would end at 12:30 for those of you that need to drop off. Can you go to our last slide here and then stick around? There's some really great questions coming up. So if you have any questions about utilizing Teams, getting Teams set up, training for Teams, let me know. Of course, if you have any questions at all over anything in Microsoft or SharePoint, let me know. I'll be able to help you with that. And I want to make sure to point out our next month, we do these monthly webinars, and our next one coming up is going to be a really great one. It's making end user reporting simple with Power BI. If you haven't used Power BI, this would be a great one to go to get some more information. And that would be on June 20th. So we hope we see you guys all there. Thank you for jumping on, and stick around. Let's go back to the questions now.
And they'll all get a copy of this recording?
Yep, sorry, I did forget to mention that. I will send out a link to this so you can go back and rewatch this or send it out to anybody that you feel would be wanting to see it. Okay, back to the questions. Next one is from Ryan. He asked, can you link the email into your Outlook?
So yes, absolutely. And the way you do that is actually by going to that file location and grabbing that actual email itself and putting it right into Outlook. It's EML file, which is an Outlook mail file. So you can open that email and you can actually respond directly to that email from within Outlook using that methodology.
Great, thank you. Next one is from Amy. She had 2 questions here. The first one was, does the scheduling assistant in Teams access the full Outlook calendar or just the meetings created in Teams? And I love both of her questions because they're my favorite features in here. And yeah, that connects to your full Outlook calendar. So right away, I can see all my meetings of the day, whether it's scheduled in Outlook or in Teams. Next one from Amy, another really great one. So when we added that attachment in the channel, she was wondering, was that actually creating the link to the existing document on SharePoint? And
Yes.
again, the answer is yes. And like I said, it's my favorite feature on there. It's the actual document. You're not worrying about versions or version 1, version 2. It's the actual document you're editing in there. You didn't have to leave Teams. Next question is from Jeff. He asked, can a Skype user message someone who has Teams only?
So that's a really good question, and it's actually a rather complicated answer, because the answer really is no, but there are some ways to get around it. But ultimately, if you're rolling out Teams in your organization and you're only doing it for a select number initially as a pilot group, we highly recommend that those pilot group members actually run Skype for Business and Teams side by side until the actual full rollout of Teams, in which case the compatibility issue is moot at that point and everyone would be using Teams. So, and there's a lot more information that goes into that, so I don't want to take up all the time on that. Could be a webinar on its own.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but if you're moving from Skype to Teams and want some help, let me know and I'll get you set up with Zach. He's great at assisting with that. Last question here. If you have any more, keep entering them in. But last question I had here was, is there a setting you need to enable the mailbox or email option?
no, it's actually on by default. Every channel gets its own email address by default, and if you distribute that email address, anyone can email that channel.
All right, that wraps up everything for today. Like I said, let me know if you have any questions or need anything else, and thank you so much for joining today. We'll be in touch soon.